we have the honor and the privilege to hear from a fierce, respected leader, not only as a congresswoman in the House of Representatives, but also, and I'm going to use the word fierce again, as a fierce, steadfast advocate for equitable transportation systems. Representative Eleanor Holmes. Yes. Yes. The highly respected, and I'd say loved, Congresswoman Holmes Norton has been serving as a congresswoman for the District of Columbia since 1991. Yes, she is the chair of the House Subcommittee on Highways and Transit. She serves on two committees, the Committee on Oversight and Reform and the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure. Before her congressional service, President Jimmy Carter appointed her to serve as the first, there's that word again, we said will be the first but not the last. First woman to chair the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. She came to Congress as a national figure who had been a civil rights and feminist leader. Listen to this, a tenured professor of law and a board member at 3 Fortune 500 companies. Congresswoman Norton has been named one of the most 100 important American women in one survey and one of the most powerful women in Washington, D.C. in another. Congressman Norton's accomplishments in breaking barriers for her disempowered district are matched only by her success in bringing home unique economic benefits to her constituents. The Congresswoman, who taught full-time before being elected, is a tenured professor of law at Georgetown University. After receiving her bachelor's degree from Antioch College in Ohio, she simultaneously earned her law degree and a Master's of American Studies degree from Yale University. As the first Black chair of WTS International, not the last, it is my distinct privilege and honor to welcome Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton as our keynote speaker. Please join me in welcoming her to the podium.
Thank you very much. I'm so pleased to be with you and to offer these keynote remarks at the WTS Spring Policy Forum. As a woman who has spent decades of her career in transportation policy and advocacy herself, I am especially pleased to offer these remarks. When my career began, few women had high-ranking positions in the workforce. During law school, where I was one of only 2 Black women, at Yale Law School, I was heavily involved in the civil rights movement, including the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. As the Assistant Legal Director of the American Civil Liberties Union, I filed a class action lawsuit charging Newsweek with discriminatory hiring practices, perhaps the first ever class action lawsuit alleging sex discrimination in the workplace. I then was appointed the first woman to chair the New York Commission on Human Rights, where I held the first public hearings in the country on discrimination against women. In 1977, I was appointed by President Jimmy Carter to be the first woman to chair the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, as you have heard. While there, I issued the first federal guidelines holding sexual harassment to be a violation of equal employment laws, later upheld by the United States Supreme Court. Finally, I was first elected to Congress in 1990, where I have served on the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure for over 30 years. Investments in transportation and workforce development, in particular for women and communities of color, have been top priorities of mine as chair and ranking member of the Subcommittee on Highways and Transit, and I have championed these investments in Congress for decades. The Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, the surface transportation portion of which was largely shaped by my Subcommittee on Highways and Transit, authorized more than $660 billion for our nation's roads, bridges, transit, railroads, airports, ports, and other transportation infrastructure. This includes over $400 billion for highways and major projects, $108 billion for transit, and $102 billion for rail. I'm especially proud of our efforts to advance gender equity in the transportation industry. Women make up 1/4 of the transportation workforce. It is imperative that we support these enterprising women by connecting them with the tools and the resources they need to succeed. The Infrastructure and Jobs Act supports diversity in transportation and infrastructure by maintaining a strong disadvantaged business enterprise program that covers surface transportation investments and expanding programs that allow states to use a portion of their federal aid highway program formula funds to support workforce development, including pre-apprenticeships, apprenticeships, and career opportunities for on-the-job training. The law creates a new Women in Trucking Advisory Board to help recruit and retain women in the truck driving industry. Furthermore, we have seen innovation to enhance diversity and equity in our transit systems. Chicago and Philadelphia recently executed an agreement to make it easier for minority and women-owned businesses to work with both of their transit agencies. In the 118th Congress, where I now serve, I expect the Subcommittee on Highways and Transit will conduct oversight on implementation and of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. I will continue to work closely with the Biden-Harris administration to ensure that grants are going out the door quickly and that new programs and requirements are implemented clearly. We will encourage our Republican majority who are interested in looking at supply chain challenges to include transit in their work. We will continue pushing to build a transportation industry that supports all communities and welcomes a diverse workforce. As professionals in this field, you have the unique opportunity and the responsibility to turn the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act from words on a page to projects on the ground. Infrastructure investments will make our communities safer, more resilient, more livable, and more equitable. Through your implementation efforts, we can transform the places where Americans live and work to create a better world for future generations. I look forward to continuing to work with WTS International to support women in transportation. And I thank you very much for coming to Washington.